Hi, it's Tom Soane, and guess what? You all know the cost of living is going up. And there's a lot of headlines which are making everybody scared of this cost of living going up. But I want to focus on landlords and buy to let property investors because if your tenant's cost of living is going to go up, that will increase the risk on your rental income. So I've got three ways here, just three ideas that will help you protect your rental income, maintain the profit on your rental property. And that is vital. And I'm going to explain why in a second. But protect the rental income, maintain your profit, and make sure that your investment, because it's an investment, whether you consider yourself an accidental landlord or an investor, it is an investment. At some point in your life, you've made a conscious decision to keep a property or buy a property and rent it out. That's an investment. It's an asset. So these three ideas are just ways that you can make sure that your rent keeps coming in, that you've got reliable tenants that stay there and pay the rent, and you maintain the profit. And I'm going to give you a couple of tips that the best property investors in the world adopt and implement. So hopefully this will help you stay secure. Now, look, cost of living, yes, is going up. I don't want to put any fear out there or anything like that. It's just another challenge. And guess what? When we solve this challenge and when we figure out this problem as property investors and business people, our reward for figuring out this problem is to move on to the next problem. That's what we do. If you want to make profit and you want to make money, you just live problem to problem to problem. You don't see them as negatives. You see them as this is the next thing that I need to conquer in order to make the next bit of money. That's all life is. That's all money is and business is. So the cost of living is going up at the moment, as we all know. It's probably going to carry on going up for a little while. There are many global influences and factors that are contributing towards this. But in a nutshell, cost of living for things like fuel and food and energy prices, all of that sort of stuff is going up for various reasons. We've also got the property market is going sky high at the moment. Properties are selling for silly prices at the moment. Whether they get through to completion is another matter, but property sales, the prices are up here. But that also means that rents are up here. I'm seeing properties rent out for absolutely ridiculous money at the moment. Now, this all has a knock-on effect. There are some investors that, you know, I would probably say are missing a point here, but some property investors see that as an opportunity to make a ton of rent from their tenants. Now, yes, that's technically true, but it is not the right way to look at this. And I'm going to explain that in a second. I've got these three ideas coming up for you. But also, with rents going up and sales going up, we've also got mortgage rates going up as well. And that's both for people that are buying properties as well as landlords. If you've got a mortgage on your property, the chances are the next time you go to remortgage or refinance, or if you're buying a property, then you're going to pay a slightly higher rate. The chances are, now we don't know this for fact, and that's kind of what contributes to all of this. It's the uncertainty, isn't it? Uncertain times. Do you know what? In all uncertain times, the best investors in the world, and I repeat, you are an investor if you own an asset. If at some point in your life you've made a decision to keep a property or another investment to generate an income, you are now an investor. Welcome to the club. But in these uncertain times, when there is a little bit of not sure what's going to happen in the future, the best investors in the world and the best countries in the world, they put their money into the safest investments. And the goal is just not to lose money, is to keep that money safe. So we have to follow what the most successful people do in the world. Keep our money safe. Make sure that our investments are still profitable as much as possible, safe, reliable, and minimal risk. And do you know what? The safest investments are normally the least profitable. And that sounds terrible, But let me ask you this. What would you do in uncertain times? Would you rather risk losing money or guarantee that you will still have your money and give yourself the best chance of making a bit of profit? Well, look, everybody's different. I know what I would choose. I like safe, reliable, definite profit over high risk, high profit all day long. Now, look, you could invest in gold. You know, whenever there's uncertainty, most of the big countries in the world just buy tons of gold. Most of the investors take their money out of cryptocurrency and stick it in gold and silver because that's seen to be safe and reliable in uncertain times. You've missed the oil jump. There was a huge oil jump over the last few years. You've missed that. So what we're left with, safe, reliable investments, is property. Whether you're buying a property now or you want to buy a property or you've got a property right now, your goal must be right this second. We've got wars going on left, right, and center. We've got diseases and stuff going on left, right, and center. So right now, your goal has to be safe, reliable profit. So 3 ideas to help you maximize and secure that. Number 1, actually, let me start that bit again because this is going to go on my podcast. So I'm probably going to cut this little bit. So cost of living is going up. Here are 3 ways to protect your rental income, maximize and maintain the profit, and keep yourself comfortable and secure with your investment. Number 1, did you like that, by the way? Number 1, think long-term, reliable, secure tenants. So if you're advertising a property to let right now, then don't be afraid of reducing the rent that you're advertising. Just for now, have a look at the market. If you've got a 2-bedroom house that you're offering for rent and all of the 2-bedroom houses are £800 a month, don't be afraid to offer yours for $750 or $775. The reason? You will guarantee that your property will be rented out first. Think about it. If you've got 2 properties identical, of course, a tenant is going to take the lower price one. Of course. But there's more to it than that. If you've got a property right now, if you've got a tenant living in a property right now, and your worry is that with this cost of living going crazy and the whole market going crazy, you might consider just dropping the rent, just a small amount, 25 quid, 50 quid. That'll do it. That will secure your tenants. It will help them afford to pay your rent more reliably. With all of those scenarios, remember, this is just for now. This is just temporary. You have to go with the market. You have to go with investing. That's what you are. You're an investor. So you have to go with the market. If the market requires you to maximize the safety and security in your existing property, then that's what you've got to do. If the market says everything's great, we're all prospering, yes, we're all, whatever that word is, we're doing great as a country, maybe you can bump it back up again. You can always increase the rent again in the future. But right now, the goal has to be safe, reliable, secure income. It will also mean that your tenants will not be prompted or motivated to look for cheaper properties because yours is where they live. They live in your properties, they've made their home there, and you've reduced your rent slightly so that now they can afford it for sure. That will encourage them to stay long term. That will enable them to be able to afford the rent, which means your rent is more guaranteed. And the way to calculate that is to focus on the yield. Now, some people, for an example, my properties on average are between about 24 to 28% return on my cash investment. It's brilliant, but that's because I do this for a living, so I know what I'm doing. But if your yield is, say, 12%, maybe say to yourself, look, it's a bit dodgy at the moment. There's loads of stuff going on, and I want to make sure my tenants carry on paying the rent, so I'm happy to accept 8% yield. Not bad. That will enable you to reduce your rent a little bit. I'm not saying you have to do this, by the way. I'm just giving you an idea of seeing the rent a little bit differently. You can reduce it now by 25 quid, give the tenant a year, and then increase it back up again next year. You won't really have lost anything because if you've increased your chances of the tenant being able to pay their rent month in, month out, actually you will have gained something. There's no point in trying to squeeze as much rent out of a person as possible when you're taking on a higher risk that they'll be able to afford it or not. There's no point in that. That is not what investors do. Actually, I'd probably argue that's what the worst investors do. They try and squeeze the highest amount of rent out of every single tenant. And what it means, it's a bit of a false economy. You might be charging a load of rent, top money for that rental property, but your tenants keep moving out because they're always looking for a cheaper property. So if every couple of years you've got an empty property for a month or two, well, what was the point in squeezing an extra 25 quid a month? None. Actually, what I'd rather have is 25 quid a month less, but a guaranteed 5, 6, 7, 8 year tenancy. That's what you want. That's protecting your asset. Like I said earlier, you are an investor. So maybe we need to start thinking like investors. Protect the asset, protect the profitability, protect my money. Number 2, refinance and reinvest. Now, look, the market is up. Sale values are up at the moment. It's crazy. This is one of the best property markets I've ever seen. Like I said earlier, whether these high sale values go through to completion or not is a different thing. I do think we're going to see a lot more property sales falling through because lenders aren't stupid. They're not going to lend ridiculous amounts of money on ridiculously priced properties just because someone's agreed to pay it. That's where a lot of sales fall through. But the market is up. So you might be in a position where you can refinance your property, use the lender's money to buy more properties. Now, what does that do? Well, apart from the obvious, it grows your portfolio, it increases your income. What it does is if you increase your income with more properties, then you'll have more income to be able to cover any properties or tenants that don't pay rent. Now that's called spreading your risk. Now that means that if one of your tenants doesn't pay rent, you still have more income coming in from other places that will be able to cover that shortfall, cover that mortgage. It also means if you've got more properties, and here's another little, going back to the first tip I made, if you've got more properties, you can reduce the rent because you've got more income coming in from more properties. So if you've got property right now and you have equity in those properties, speak to a mortgage advisor. I'm happy to connect you up with mine if you would prefer that, or if you've got your own, speak to them. By the way, if you do want me to connect you up with my mortgage advisor, I'll just do it by email, but you'll have to email me. It's tom@pinkstreet.co.uk. pinkstreet.co.uk. Just email me across and I'll just connect you up with my mortgage advisor by email, or comment below, or send me a message, DM me, whatever you want to do. And I'll just connect you up with my mortgage advisor to help you out. Now, that will enable you to find out how much you could borrow against your existing property. You could release some of that equity, take it straight out, put it straight into another property purchase, increase your income, and that will spread your risk and enable you to maximize the current income that you're getting. And by the way, if you've got to pay off a current mortgage, then in some cases it's okay to pay a redemption penalty. I know that sounds crazy. A lot of people think you can't pay off a mortgage early. Well, you absolutely can. It just might mean you might pay 1% or 2% in penalties to pay it off. Let me put that into a perspective. If you've got a £100,000 mortgage and you pay it off early because you refinance it, meaning you take another mortgage, pay off that mortgage, and you're left with the difference, then your existing mortgage lender might charge you 1% or 2% or whatever. So you might pay 2,000 quid for that, but it might enable you to release 50 grand or 40 grand or whatever to buy another property. Now, how quickly could you get that £2,000 back that you've just paid as a penalty? Wouldn't take you too long. So think about it like that. sometimes it's okay to pay a settlement penalty or a redemption penalty with your existing mortgage lender in order to release the cash. You don't have to wait until the end of your fixed term. You can pay it off now. But only do that if it's worth it. Only do that if you're going to be able to reinvest it and it's worth paying that penalty to get that money out. But what you'll do is buy another property, increase your income, decrease your risk, because remember, if you've only got one property now and one tenant doesn't pay rent, that's 100% of your income gone. If you've got two properties and one of your tenant doesn't pay rent, that's only 50% of your income gone. And if you play it right, then one property could pay the mortgage payments on two properties, if that makes sense. You're just covering yourself, protecting yourself, but also growing your assets. And then when the market recovers, like it always does, and everything gets back to normal, whatever normal is, then you'll have two properties or more, depending if you keep on going. So it's okay to pay a penalty. But the important thing is to increase your income in order to protect yourself in this instance. Now, I know in point one, I talked about reducing rent. I'm trying to split this up into secure your rental income. That's the most important thing. Guarantee that you have income coming in. Number two is to increase your income. So this is a different idea, to use the equity in your property to increase the income. Think of it like this. You know that golden rule of life that you've got to put your own oxygen mask on first before you try and put other people's oxygen masks on, because you can't, if you're dying, you can't put someone else's oxygen mask on. So save yourself first, and then you can protect others and save others and help others. Same rule here. If you buy another property, if you increase your income on property and you decrease your risk on property and guarantee that you've got rental income coming in, then that means you can look after your tenants, you can help your tenants, you can make sure you can afford maintenance and repairs, make sure you can afford all the compliance and everything. But you can only do that if your income and profit is secure. So definitely consider increasing your income by using your equity to buy more properties. If you need some help, by the way, I definitely should say this. I should say this all the time, really, but if you need some help in finding the good buy-to-let properties, the really good buy-to-let properties, the off-market, below market value sometimes, or just really great yielding buy-to-let properties, then definitely let me know. Comment below if you're looking for properties or you want to be shown these off-market, below market value, great buy-to-lets, profitable buy-to-lets, safe, secure, etc., etc. Then comment below, or you can message me direct, or you can email me, tom@pinkstreet.co.uk. That's tom@pinkstreet.co.uk. You have to get those property deals. You have to invest your money. So, number 3, work out the worst case scenario and put a number on it. Now, this is the third part, which is protecting you. We are in uncertain times right now. Now, you've got two types of investors here. There's one type of investor that will worry about it, panic about it, have a lot of fear and anxiety. And I feel really sad for those people because they're going through some stuff right now. They're going through some difficult times because they're worried about what's going to happen. They're not sure what to do. But then you've got the other type of investor that, as I said at the beginning of this, sees this as just the next challenge. This is just the next problem to overcome in order to make the next bit of money and to grow the portfolio again and to increase profit, decrease risk. This is just the next thing to deal with. And that's all it is, the next thing to deal with. Once we deal with this thing and we get through this thing, then there's the next thing. Think of what we've had over the last few years. It's been crazy. And there's going to be another thing that we'll have to deal with. That's life. So what you need to do as an investor is work out what is the worst case scenario and put a number on it. So for an example, if you will have to evict your tenant because cost of living has gone up too high, it means that the tenant stops paying their rent and they owe you a load of money and you have to go through the eviction process. How much is that going to cost you? Now, a lot of landlords worry about this. They worry that their tenant has stopped paying rent, or they worry before the tenant stops paying rent. It's a big fear for landlords. What happens if my tenant doesn't pay any rent? It's a big fear. So the way to overcome that fear is to put a number on it, because the numbers don't lie. They're very factual. You can't get around them. You can't fake them. Numbers, put a number on it. Evictions. How long is it going to take you to evict a tenant? Let's say it's going to take you 6 months. And let's say your payments are £500 a month on a property. So you're going to have to carry on paying £500 a month for 6 months while you evict a tenant. £3,000. Not too bad. Now you know that if the tenant stops paying rent, you'll have to have £3,000 to cover that entire thing. Now, if I go back to point 2 and you've got other properties because you've refinanced and you've got other properties, then the best thing you can do is make sure you've got enough money to pay your other properties. In that case, you can go through the eviction process. You can pay off the other mortgages each month, no problem, using the rent from the other properties that you've bought. So that's okay. Now you know that there's the number, 3,000. Same thing with reletting. If one of your tenant has to move out because they can't afford the property, well, inevitably, you're going to have an empty property for a while. What does that look like? How much is that going to be? What's the number? Reletting a property might cost you, say, 500 quid in agency fees. It might cost you a month of an empty property. How much money is that? 1,000 quid? Okay, there it is. There's the number. Now we know. We're not worried about having an empty property because we just know, okay, that's 1,000 quid. It's not empty property. It's not eviction and not paying rent and losing money and all of this. It's £1,000. It's £3,000. It's £5,000. Your boiler blows up. It's 800 quid, right? That's what I'm trying to get to you. Work out what is the worst case scenario. What's the worst thing that could possibly happen here, and put a number on it. And this is where it gets exciting. It gets exciting if you're a geek like me. But if you reduce the rent by 50 quid a month, what does that look like? If you do it for a year and you reduce it by £50 a month in order to make sure that your tenant can afford to live there, because they're good tenants, they look after the house, they've not caused any problems, they're reliable, they're paying their rent every month, but you are going to reduce your rent by £50 per month to make sure you keep them, it's £600 for the year. And the best part is you don't have to pay anything out. You don't have to physically pay out £50. You don't have to physically pay out £600 for that year. It's just a reduced income. Now, if you do all of these things and you reduce your rent by 50 quid, you refinance to buy more properties, and you kind of make yourself more comfortable by putting numbers on the worst case scenarios, then actually you're going to come out better off here. Because if you've got more properties, you've got more income. If you've got more safe, reliable, secure, long-term tenants, then you've got safe income. So that's what we all want. That's what investing is. More income, safe income. That's it. And that's what buy-to-let investing is. That's why the most successful buy-to-let, or actually the most successful property investors in the world, that's why they go for buy-to-let, because it's the safest place that they can put their money that makes money. So hopefully those little 3 ideas work for you. I definitely have to remember, but I remember to tell you, by the way, I've written a note to remind myself to tell you that I'm taking pre-registration for my buy-to-let masterclass. Now, I don't ever do training. I've been doing this for a little while now, and I've never done training. I don't do mentoring. I don't do things like that. But I get a lot of people asking me for very similar advice. So I've put everything that I did, everything that my clients have done, and everything that the best property investors in the country have done into a buy-to-let masterclass. I actually really liked making this. It was brilliant. I put it all together and it reminded me of when I started my first properties that I've messed up, properties that I've had great successes from, properties that I've still got, that I've got rid of on the way, and all the technical strategies and processes that I followed along the way. So I've launched the pre-registration. It's nothing more than comment below, message me, or email me if you want me to send you the full registration details. But pre-register now. I don't know how many people I'm going to have on this course. I don't want to have like loads of people, and I can't help people individually on a one-to-one basis. So I don't know how many people are going to have it yet. I'm just going to play that by ear. But I've had quite a few people pre-register already. So I'll tell you what I'll do. Would it help? Can you answer me on this one, by the way? Would it help if I made a video detailing all of the content that I'm going to include in the buy-to-let masterclass? Would that help everybody? If it would, let me know. I'll probably do it anyway, actually, but let me know if it would help. And like I say, this is everything that I've done in the buy-to-let world, and everything that the most successful clients that I've got have done, and the most successful investors in the country have done. So this will help you if you want to get into property and you want to be a landlord and own property. And I'm not talking about the big refurbishments, the big renovations, the big HMO, serviced accommodation. I'm talking about how you can buy safe, profitable, reliable buy-to-let properties. So we're going old school. So just to recap then, remember, cost of living is going up and there's nothing you can do about it. So don't worry about it. It's not something that you can control. Let's let all of the other people worry about that. And what we have to do as property investors is make sure that we are protecting ourselves, protecting our money, protecting our assets. That's our job as property investors. So forget cost of living. It doesn't matter. What we have to do is think long-term, reliable, secure tenants. Actually, sorry to go back on this again, but I'm just going to do a quick piece here, which I might be able to chop out for my TikTok channel. So cost of living is going up. Here are 3 ways that you can protect your rental income and maintain profit. Do you like what I did there? Okay. Number 1, think long-term, reliable, secure tenants. Don't be afraid to reduce your rent by a little bit just for a year or 2. It will make sure that your tenants stay in your property and can afford the rent. Safe, reliable income is much better than having a tenant that's always looking for a cheaper property and is motivated to move out. That will leave you with an empty property and less chance of your tenants paying all the rent. Number 2, refinance and reinvest. Increase your income by using the equity in your property to buy more property. If you can maneuver that so that you've got multiple properties that can afford each other, meaning if you've got 2 properties that one of them can afford the rent on both, afford the mortgage payments on both, win-win. And number 3, work out the worst case scenario and put a number on it. How much will it actually cost you to evict a tenant? How much will it actually cost you to relet a property? Once you know this, then you can secure yourself and make sure you've got that money safe and put away in the worst case scenario. And this goes a little bit further, because if you do reduce your rent, how much is that actually going to cost you? A reduction of £50 a month is only £600 for the year. And you don't have to pay it out. You're just reducing the income. But you will make sure that you get the rent paid. You will have long-term, safe, reliable tenants that pay the rent, look after the property, and are less likely to move out. And that's what we all want as property investors. So remember, if you want to pre-register for my buy-to-let masterclass, bear in mind, I don't know how many more of these I'll do. I don't do training. I don't do mentoring. So this is a one-off for the time being. Email me, tom@pinkstreet.co.uk, or you can just comment below and me or my team will get in touch with you, or just message me direct if you want to register for that. But I hope all this helps. Don't worry about cost of living going up. Just make sure that you're doing everything you can do, not worrying about everything that you can't.